Welcome to everybody. Welcome to our webinar, which will be looking at designing a retail and kiosk app for your iPad. My name is Leanne, and I'm an art director here at Oomph. And today we'll be looking at a few different things pertaining to our kiosk app. So first of all, why create a kiosk app? Benefits of doing so. We'll be looking at a live example, and we'll be looking at a kiosk that was created for Jurlique as an example. Then we'll go into looking at the actual files that have been created to or that have been used to create a template of a kiosk. So this is also a set of files that you'll be getting after the webinar. So it's just an example of what pages you may put into, or screens you may put into a kiosk. So typical pages or screens that are contained in a kiosk. So we'll have a little bit of a look at how to set these up, getting started in Oomph, and just a dissection of the main types of screens that are contained in this. And then also a few things pertaining to user experience, so features that Oomph has that you can use for kiosk apps specifically, mainly pertaining to navigation and the Oomph kiosk mode. Then we'll have a little bit of a look at building an app, so the actual app that will house your content. So just a very basic look at that. And then publishing your content, so steps to doing that. And then if we have time towards the end, we'll just see how we go. But I've also prepared a few other things to consider. You know, considering that your kiosk is going to be in a public space, and there may be some additional considerations when setting an app like this up. And then, of course, we will have our Q&A. So right at the end, and also feel free to ask questions as we go along. So my colleague Erica is also here with me. So yeah, do feel free to ask questions, and we will get those answered hopefully during the course of the webinar. Okay, so let's start off by looking at why have a kiosk app. Now, as we know, kiosks are generally used in public spaces, and this provides brands or companies with an opportunity to extend their brand into, I guess, a different space. So you can use a kiosk app to extend your brand's presence into areas like, you know, airport terminals or waiting lounges or hotel foyers or museums. So yeah, or also retail environments like shopping malls or stores. So yeah, there's I guess a limitless amount of sort of public spaces that you could consider sort of putting a kiosk in and you know, having your brand being present there. I think it also can influence people's perception of your brand. So using a technological device like an iPad and presenting your brand on that type of device can positively influence people's perception of your brand. It can also enhance store experiences. So you can use a kiosk to, you know, help people find out information about products. Perhaps you know, your brand may be present in a really big store like a department store that isn't that well staffed, or you know, yeah, you could then use your kiosk to help people to self-shop or browse products and find out more information that way without needing to flag down a sales assistant or try and get their attention. Kiosks can also help to streamline processes. So you know, if you need to get people to do a quiz or whatever, or get people registered at an event or something, you could set up a number of kiosks to help that process. And by using a combination of Oomph and third-party applications, you could create a really useful kiosk in those environments. And then also, you can, of course, use kiosks to collect customer information, whether it's signing up for a newsletter or them just sharing a bit of their, their feedback or something on a topic. So these could also be used at events or, I don't know, in store. Yeah. All right, so let's have a look at a live example of, or a real life example of a kiosk app. So this is one that we did in collaboration with Jurlique. So Jurlique is sort of a premium Australian skincare range or skincare brand. They really pride themselves in using a lot of natural products. They have a beautiful farm in South Australia where they grow a lot of their ingredients that go into their products. And yeah, they really wanted to sort of create a kiosk that would change people's, or bring about sort of a change in perception of the brand. I'll talk about that in the next step. Yeah, they had a few goals associated with their kiosk, and this kiosk is intended to be used in 3 different places. So not just in Australia, but also in other countries like Hong Kong. They have also looked at implementing this kiosk. So they will start with putting this kiosk in their concept or flagship stores. So at the moment, there is one in the Westfield, Sydney, Jurlique concept store. And yes, it'll also then be used in department stores. So it might be used in a very different way in the department store. So obviously the flagship stores are very well staffed, and the staff that work there are very well trained, and they engage with customers, any customers that walk in there, where it might be a bit different in department stores or travel retail. So the kiosk is we've got various sort of functions in these different store types. So let's have a bit of a closer look at their main aims, and we will also then, I'll show you a few screens from that app. So their main aims were to assert brand leadership through the use of technology, and over here you can see the installation. We've just sort of installed the kiosk in the Westfield Sydney store, and yeah, the sales assistant is sort of becoming a bit more familiar with it and trying it out and getting to know all the different features. So yeah, I think it's really used as a way to communicate the story behind the Jurlique brand. They also want to use the kiosk as a way to cater to different customer needs. So this, again, is touching on the different shopping environments, like the flagship stores or the concept stores. So whether it's in a concept store, in travel retail, any customer can walk up to it and learn about the products. They can also, it's got a sort of a skin consultation matrix, which has a series of questions, and the shopper can then sort of do a self-consultation and learn which products might suit them best. So yeah, really useful in that way. It's also used, it's got multi-language functionality. So this is really useful for, especially in Australian stores where not all the sales staff may be fluent in Chinese or Japanese. So the app also has multilingual functionality where content is translated into different languages and then acts as a tool for English-speaking sales staff. And then lastly, it also has a way to capture data from shoppers. So you can sign up to the Jurlique newsletter and this information is plugged straight into their CRM database. Okay, so I'm just going to switch over to my iPad, and I will then show you what this app looks like. Right, so just to take a step back, what is Oomph? Now, Oomph is a versatile tablet publishing platform that allows print and web designers to create rich media apps without any code. Okay, so we'll be taking a look at how you can go about this using your InDesign skills as a print designer or a web designer. You may be familiar with InDesign too, but we use mainly InDesign to generate assets for many of the apps that we create. You will also be able to find out a lot of information about anything that I tell you today, like all the Oomph features, slideshows, and integrating forms or adding a search functionality. You'll be able to find that all at our support and learning page. That's at oomphhq.com/support and learning. So I'll just show you where that is. So if you wanted to, add a slideshow, simply type that in, and it will show you all the different types of slideshows you can incorporate. So, example, a full page slideshow. You'll have a video to watch on how to create that feature in InDesign, and you'll also be able to download example files of every feature. So that's our support and learning. All right, so let's take a look at how we've created this kiosk template that I just showed you. Okay, so now I'm going to jump across to the InDesign file that I used to create this. Okay, so starting with our home page, a few basics on just page setup. So I've set my page up to iPad screen size, which is 1024 by 768 pixels. So I've set it up in landscape format for this purpose. You can, of course, set it up as portrait, but I think landscape sort of suits kiosk a bit better. So, right, that's our first step. Now, the next thing is I have added a page link here. Now, this will make, let me just change my screen so we can see. All right, so I've set up my page and then I've created an enter button. So that's really just a graphic, a box with text in it, and then I've hyperlinked that box. So this is an example of a page link. Now you'll notice in the hyperlinks panel here that this box has a hyperlink attached to it. So let me just remove it and start from the beginning so you can see that how I created that. So I will select a box. You can hyperlink any element on your page. You can hyperlink the object directly, or you could draw transparent box over the top of it. Just it depends, I guess, how generous your button is, how big it is. So that's 60 points, so that's quite big. Definitely should be big enough, but yeah, you can create a sort of a transparent box that sits on top of that and hyperlink that. So what you do to create a hyperlink is tap on, click on create new hyperlink in your hyperlinks panel. And what I'm putting in here is a code for a page link. So you begin with a capital P for page link, and then you will put in the name of the folder or the section that you want to link to. So the section I want to link to, I already know that it's called main menu. So I'm getting the name from that folder, which is my main menu. So I'm typing the name in exactly as it's presented in the folder name. You can also add the number of the folder, but that's not necessary. Right, then you want to uncheck your hyperlink destination box. That's really important because if you don't do that, it affects how the hyperlink is read and yeah, it sometimes doesn't work if you do that. So it's important to uncheck your hyperlink destination and say OK. So you'll see that the appearance of this box has now changed. It's got a dotted line around it. So that's the feature of the latest InDesign, which is quite useful because when you're creating these type of assets for Oomph, you end up with a lot of transparent hyperlink boxes, and this just helps you to see whether it has a hyperlink on it or not. Okay, so I've now created my hyperlink or hotspot for my enter button. All right, so we can now, let's export this page. So I'm just going to have a look inside my finished folder here. So you'll see that I have two files in my cover folder. So the first file is a movie. Now this movie has been created probably in a program like Motion, and it's been created in exactly the right dimensions or the same dimensions as an iPad screen. So again, 1024 by 768 pixels. So that is going to form my bottommost layer in my cover screen. So you can create an Oomph page layering as many different types of media as you want. So in this example, I've layered a movie file and a PDF file. So my layer 2 will sit on top of layer 1. That's the way Oomph structures things. So your smallest number sits at the bottom and all subsequent layers sit on top of that. So you can see that this is my second layer with my enter button on and the transparent hyperlink here. In that corner you can't see the Oomph logo, but it's there also. All right, so what I'll do to create that second layer, so yeah, creating the movie is a separate process in using Motion or other video editing program, but we'll just focus for now on creating PDF content. Okay, so what I've done is, so I've just used this image as a reference. So I'm going to hide that, and I'll be left with, I'll just turn on my red layer. So just the logo and then my button with the hyperlink, the hotspot. So I will just export this layer into my folder called cover, 10-cover. Oh, sorry, that's not right. Where's my example app? Yeah. So my kiosk example, so into that cover. And I'm going to call this file L1-2. So L is for landscape. If you're designing for portrait, you call it P. As we're doing a landscape app, we're calling it L. And this is page 1, and it's layer 2 of page 1. So all your main page files will have this naming convention. So you'll always put a number or a letter for the orientation, the number of the page, and then the number of the layer. All right, so we're also then exporting for PDF. I'm going to say save and place that file. I'm exporting page 1, and then the settings that I'm using are just 72. So yeah, I found that with PDF content, 72 is fine. If you're wanting to put straight JPEG content into a folder, and you want to ensure that your content looks amazing on your Retina displays, then you may want to, bump up the resolution to 132 or a bit of a higher resolution. But yeah, for PDF content, 72 is fine. So I'm using that as my compression. On output, I'm using an RGB profile under convert to destination dropdown. So of course your content's going to end up on a screen. So for screen, you want RGB and not CMYK. If you're using pre-existing print content, for instance, you may need to convert that. So yeah, always put it on RGB or on an RGB profile for your output. And then the last thing is you want your hyperlinks ticked. So that's really important. So there are really three things that you're looking at in your export settings. Your hyperlinks are ticked, your compression is set at something less than high resolution, 300 dpi, because that's going to make really large files. So 72 dpi or ppi for your compression, and then your RGB output. Okay, so page 1, so that's fine. We've now replaced that. Okay, and yeah, those are the two files that make up my cover then. All right, so you can also test a single folder in Oomph editor. So I can drag just the cover folder onto the editor. Just that will open then, and I can send that to my simulator. So click play, and then you'll see the files load. So there you see the video in the background. That's my L1-1 layer, and then my enter button with a hyperlink on it over here on the second layer. Now if I tapped on this, because I've only loaded that folder called cover, our enter button isn't going to go anywhere because the files for my main menu have not been added in yet. So it's important if you're testing a page link that you have the folder that you wanted to link to in the bundle that you're testing. So if I loaded all of my files into the simulator and then tapped on enter, it would then take me to main menu. Okay, so that's our cover. So that's quite simple. It's got a video layer and a page link taking you to your main menu page. Our main menu is really very similar. We've got 3 buttons, each with a different page link on it. So our philosophy would take us to a folder called our philosophy. So let's have a look at how that is set up. Philosophy page. Now just to recap, we do go and have a look at that. It's got an image in the background, and then it's got a slideshow, a vertical in-page slideshow also on the page. Okay, so again, we've set our page up to iPad proportions, so 1024 by 768 pixels. We've then created a box which will house our vertical in-page slideshow, and we have created a hyperlink on that box called VIPS1. Now VIPS1 stands for Vertical In-Page Slideshow. Now each Oomph feature will have a code associated with it. So if you have a look on our support and learning page, you search for the cheat sheet, you'll find this document. So it's basically a quick list of all the features contained in Oomph. And so the function, the description, and then the code for it. So we're dealing with a vertical in-page slideshow in this case. So there's that one. And it'll then tell you that the code to create a vertical in-page slideshow is VIPS. And in most cases, you will need to add a number at the end of your code, because you may very well put more than one VIPS on your page, and in that case, you want to differentiate them from each other. So this is my first one. I've called it VIPS1. You can obviously start at any number you want, but I guess starting at 1 makes sense. Okay, so created my box, which will house my slide, and I will then create the content that will go inside that slide or inside that box. So I've done that on the following page. So here you'll see I've got a long page which contains all the text and the video that I want to have displayed inside that box. So setting up your slide page, first thing to do is measure the width of your box that you've created for your slide. So in this case, it's 633 pixels wide. So the page I will then set up will be 633 pixels wide, and as long as you need it to be to house all your content. All right, so I've left a bit of space at the top here, so that it's basically just to create this nice effect. So really the slide extends all the way up there, but because I've used a gradient starting, you know, at this point here, all that shows up transparent, and then the gradient sort of appears behind the text lower down. So that works really nicely for this sort of scrolling effect and still showing a bit of the background image. All right, so that is basically what you do when you set up a slideshow. Something else to just think about is your text size. If you're used to designing for print, your body copy is probably going to be around 9 point or 8 point. A minimum size for body copy on an iPad is about 15 or 16, depending on your font. So that's just a bit of a guideline. Of course, you can test your content and see what you think works well or what you think would be comfortably legible for your target audience. All right, now on my slideshow, I've also got a video. So this video is an in-page video. So it will remain when you tap on this area, on this hotspot area, the video will play inside this box. So as you can see in this example, the video plays inside the slideshow, which is contained inside our page. Now, if you wanted your video to take over the screen, you could use a full screen video, and that would have a different code. That would just be V1. But to create your in-page video, you'll use the code IPv1. Then I've also placed, obviously, an icon to indicate that you can tap to play the video, and a placeholder screenshot, or just a placeholder image. All right, so we can now export these pages. I'm just going to turn that off. All right, so our main page, we will export into our philosophy section. This actually, I've created a bit of a mask on layer 2. That's what's contained on that. Yeah, that's just the mask that I've created. So my main content is housed on L1-1. It's the light blue layer in my InDesign document. So I'm going to export that as L1-1 using the same settings, so print, and then again making sure hyperlinks are checked. The compression is set at 72 or something lower than 300 dpi, and I've got my RGB. So I'm exporting page 4 as my main page. Oh, all right, now it sometimes does that when the files are open in the Oomph editor. Okay. All right, so that's my main page, which houses my vertical in-page slideshow. I will then go on to export the content for my vertical in-page slideshow. And so export page 5 into a folder called VIPS1. So an easy way to remember what you need to do here is whatever hyperlink you create in your InDesign document, you'll create a corresponding folder in your file structure. So same name as my hyperlink, VIPS1. And we're now exporting something called a slide. So that naming convention will be S1-1, not L1-1. So anything that's smaller than a page, you're likely going to call S1-1. So same settings, print, and then the 3 important things to remember here, exactly the same sort of settings for that. Export page 5 into my folder called VIPS1. So there you see my slide or slide page and the video with a hyperlink. It's now sitting inside that folder. As for the video, videos don't need to go into subfolders within your main folder. So that will just be, you know, you'll edit your video in video editing software and you'll rename it again to correspond with your hyperlink in your InDesign file. So it's called IPv1 and the actual name of the movie will be called IPv1, and then that will be, you know, that will sort of play inside your hotspot called IPv1 on your slide. Okay, we can then test that folder if we want. So drag it into Oomph Editor, send it to the simulator. So there it is. All right, now something else that you'll notice on the pages is this little side navigation. Now this element is something I want to have present on all my screens or pages within the app. So you'll see wherever you go in the app, except the main menu, of course, it will appear on the side. So what I've used to create that little asset is something called a shared asset. So you'll see I've created the hotspot containing the menu on the right hand side of this page. So that's so what's going on here is as a start, let's just focus on the name of the object. So I'm using an object here. Now an object in Oomph is basically just a container of content. It's a bit of content. But you can name an object whatever you like. So it's different to the other widgets or features in Oomph that have predefined names like in-page slideshow or vertical in-page slideshow. So all of those, you can't change their names, but an object is one such feature that you can change the name of. So I've given it a descriptive name in this case and called it menu. All right, so what I've also done is added a little animation. So in the same way that you can animate page layers in Oomph, you can animate objects. So I've just added the animation by saying comma, move in from right. Now if you are a little bit familiar with Oomph, you'll know that there are a set of default animations. Move in from right is one of them. So when you type in that command, this object will know automatically what to do. So it will move in from right as you land on the page. Okay, so that is my container for my little menu. I've then gone and created the artwork for my menu over here. You'll see that it's got a little search icon. You can tap on that to search. You can go back to your home page, your main menu. That would take you to philosophy page, explore the range, and sign up, and of course the back button. So I've created those graphics, and then I've also added the relevant hotspots to them. So for search, for instance, I've added a hotspot called search. Now Oomph has the built-in sort of capability of a search function. So usually you can access this by, tapping on, not there, but yeah, if you have a search index added, you usually be able to access it through your navigation bar. But you can also add it to your page as a hotspot, which is what I've done here. So you simply create a box, draw a box, and hyperlink it called search. So when you tap on that, it'll then bring up your search bar. On my main menu, so again using our page links. So this one is P main menu, that'll take you back to the main menu. That one will take you to our philosophy, explore the range, and sign up. And then my little back button, so this is using a widget or a feature called the Go To widget, and you can do different things with this. You can, use it to go back a page, or you can use it in another way or different ways. Let's just have a look. No. Sorry, maybe I'm searching under the wrong name. But anyway, in this instance, you can tell it to go back, which is useful if your user can't swipe between pages and want to go back to the page they were on. All right, so that's the main menu, or not the main menu, the little side menu or sidebar navigation. So what I've done, because this element is going to be present on most of the pages in my app, I have created a shared layer using this element and a shared object using these elements. So let's start by, I'll show you the shared layer. So I'm going to export just this layer with this menu on it into a folder called shared. Now, these shared assets, as I mentioned, are things that occur globally throughout the app. So instead of pasting this menu into every single folder that is present in my app, I can put it in the shared, and simply by using a naming convention, I can pull this layer into any of the folders I want it to appear in. All right, so that is this layer that's come from InDesign. You obviously can't see the hotspot on the right here because it's transparent. But I've exported that as L1-10. So I've given it quite a big number so that it sits on top of any other layers I may create in my main folders. So, like this one has 2 layers in. You may have one that has 3 or 4 layers in. So I've given it quite a big number so that it will always sit right on top of any other layers present in my main folders. All right, so wherever I use the word menu added to my folder name, this layer is going to be pulled into that folder in addition to displaying what is in that folder. So the way you add a shared layer to a folder is simply by adding a little pipe and then the name of the folder that you've added into your shared layers. Now, shared objects work in a similar way. So my menu element is going to become an example of a shared object. So that I have exported into shared objects, and its name is also, well, its name is menu, also menu. So yeah, I mean, name things descriptively so that it makes sense to you. So wherever I have this hotspot called menu present in my iPad files, it's going to pull this element into that hotspot. So shared assets are a great way to, have common elements in your app without needing to duplicate them in every folder. All right, so that's just a bit of a side note on shared assets. But that's how I've created this this menu bar on every page in this app. Okay, so going on to our Explore the Range page. Right, so we're starting, so let's turn on all these layers, hide the menu. All right, so again, we've used a page link here. So this is my sub-contents page that shows all the different types of products that my brand has, like facial skincare or body care or so forth. All right, so I've just created one working example in this. So in this case, I'm just linking to facial skincare. So again, you'll go through the same process of exporting your page into your relevant folder. In this case, it's Explore the Range, and I've got the header or the title of the page animating onto the page with a move in from left animation command. All right, so let's take a look at our facial skincare. Now this one has, again, different objects on it. So objects are quite, oh no, this is actually a page swap. You could use an object here, but a page swap is actually a bit quicker and easier if you do have that option. So what's happening here is I've created a page swap which will contain these 4 pages. Now, a page swap essentially is a multi-page document or PDF, and only one of those pages will show on the screen at any given time. So when you land on your facial skincare range page, page 1 will be showing by default. If you then tap on these hotspots corresponding with the other pages, the page will then swap to display those. So let's take a look at that. And I'll actually show you, let me just sign in here. I can then show you some extra functionality in the app. All right, so what you're seeing here is our hotspot debug. And this is a mode that you can put your simulator or your iPad, or if you've got Viewer on your iPad, you can put your device into this mode and you can see all the hotspots that you've created. So you can check if they're correct. If they show up green, they're correct. If they show up red, there's something wrong. Maybe you've named them incorrectly, or maybe the thing you're trying to link to is missing. So it's a good way to test your work. So you'll see here that we've landed on the facial skincare page. Page 1 is showing, so that relates to the code R1. If I tap on Age Repair, it'll then display page 2 of that page swap, page 3, and page 4. If we take a look at the file for that, you'll see that I've used my regular naming convention, L1-1, and then I've also added SWP to that. So there you can see that the PDF contains 4 different pages, and only one of those will ever be shown on your screen. And you can swap between them, displaying different bits of content. Okay, and then also within each page, I've then added another vertical in-page slideshow, which will then contain products relating to that range. So as you can see, if you tap on page repair, you can scroll down and view all the products in that range. So each page of the page swap will have a different VIPS. So for example, so facial skincare has VIPS 1, hydration, VIPS 2, and so forth. And that will, same process as our philosophy page. You'll just export the products that will be shown in each vertical in-page slideshow into the relevant folder. Okay, so that's our sub-contents or explore the range page. Then let's have a look at our product page. All right, so this is a page using the main functionality on this page is using an object and an action hotspot. So I've named my object main box in this case. And then the action hotspots that correspond to that will change the pages displayed inside my main box. Just to show you what that looks like. So these 3 pages over here, so contained on pages 19 through to 21, these are the 3 slideshow or slide pages that will be contained inside this object called main box. So I've set up my page, I've drawn a box which will contain various information, you know, about the product, maybe how to, and a video or something. And then when these tabs are tapped, because they have actions relating to them, they will then change the content within that box. So to start off with, I export my main page. So let's have a look at this product. So exported that page, got my hyperlink box here called main page, and then my action hotspots over there. Got my folder called main box, and inside there you can see 3 pages that will be displayed in that box. All right, so let's just have a closer look at these hotspots. So what I've done here is I've created an action. So the very first thing you put in your command or your URL, the hyperlink URL, is action. You then say what the action is going to be performed on. So in this case, we're performing an action on this object called main box. So when I tap this tab, I want page 1 of my slideshow to display. And the transition that I want to use is a push transition. So let's see what that looks like. So here's my product. By default, it displays page 1 of the slideshow. If I tap on the next tab, you'll see that page 2 moves into my main box with a push transition. And same thing for my 3rd slide page. All right, so that's a little bit on action hotspots. So you can see the action hotspot for the 2nd tab displays page 2, same type of transition. Page 3, and so forth. All right, then the other thing I've got on my page is a card flip. So that is contained in this little box here called card flip 1. And the content for that card flip has been set up over here. So I've got did you know on the front, and then a little fact contained on the back. So I will export these 2 pages into my folder called card flip 1, front and back, and those will then, when you load your files onto your simulator or iPad, display, and it will perform a flip action when tapped. Okay, so that is basically those are the main pages contained in this example of a retail kiosk app. So just to recap, we've got our main page, our cover page or our landing page, which you tap to then go through to your main menu, which has a series of page links on, taking you to various pages within that app. Sort of a brand or introductory page introducing the brand and the products, the philosophy behind them, containing a vertical in-page slideshow and an in-page video. You then have the Explore the Range page, which has a page link taking you to sub-contents containing a facial skincare range. This page is made up of a page swap and vertical in-page slideshows. So, and then if you tap on that page or that product, a page link will take you to a product page, and our product page contains a little tip within a card flip and then an object with hotspots which change the content within that object box. We've also got, all right, so I think we're probably not going to have time to go through this in detail, but this is a Wufoo form, just, yeah, contained on that page. But yeah, I think for today we are not going to be able to cover that. Okay, and then lastly, we've got our shared, our side menu, which is a shared asset. So it's been placed on all the pages, most of the pages within the app, using a shared layer, and the object inside that shared layer is a shared object. And those are contained in your folder called Shared. Okay, so I think in the remaining time, I'm just going to talk a little bit about actually building your app. So one of the first things you're going to consider when you actually build your app is what type of license you'll have, and subsequently what type of app you're going to have. So at Oomph, we have two different types of apps. As you can, the page or the example that you can see on the screen is a library style app. So that means once you've built your app, or you've built the framework to contain your content in, you can publish as many editions of content within that app as you want. So that's really great. You know, if you've got multiple markets that you need to roll out this kiosk app to, for it suits Jurlique really well, because they have an Australian version of the kiosk and then a slightly different version which is going into their Hong Kong stores. So they've chosen a library style app so they can add many more editions of content as they roll out the kiosk app to different countries. So that is a library style app. The other type of app does not have a library, and it's a non-library app, or it's called a standalone. So what happens with those is you don't have the ability to publish content within your app. Your app build, or the framework of the app and the content, are actually they're combined into one package. And it's a bit more difficult to edit content because it is sort of combined with the app. So whenever you do want to change content in a standalone or a non-library app, you essentially need to go through a process of resubmitting your entire app to Apple, which is a little bit of a timely process. You know, it can't just be done instantly. There's a bit of a waiting period. So that's just something to be aware of when you're starting your app or planning it. Library apps are really easy to update content within. It's simply a matter of re-uploading new content to the publishing dashboard and clicking publish, and that new content will then display in your app. Okay, so a few basics that you will need to build an app. And so I'll start with these two down here. So the very first thing is an Apple developer account. So in order to create an app that functions on iOS, you need a developer account. This is quite easy to set up and is relatively inexpensive. I think it's around $100 US at this stage. So you'll need that, and then you'll also need an iTunes Connect account to, well, in the case of putting your app in the App Store, in the iTunes Store, you will need this account to make that app available in the App Store. All right, and then the other thing that you will use to actually build your app is the Oomph publishing dashboard. So the publishing dashboard has various functions. So I'm just going to have a look at this app called Artisan, for example. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay. So the Oomph publishing dashboard is used to publish content in the case of library apps, but it also can be used to actually build your app. So we're currently in the content section, but if you have a look at the side menu, you'll see a series of different tabs that you can tap on that will require information pertaining to your app. So, for example, the app name, various credentials. You'll need to upload some certificates. You can choose different functionality on your app, like whether it has a navigation bar, like this nav bar at the bottom, or thumbnails. You can determine those kind of things when you're building your app. You can also change colors to some extent, colors of the framework or the navigation. You'll also have a space to upload your app icons. So just touching on that. So when you build an app, there are a few basics you need in terms of artwork. An icon is one of them. So you'll need to create your icon in various sizes. So this is a list of what those are. So in iOS 7, you need a little one, 76 by 76, and then also two bigger ones, or three bigger ones really. You'll also need a splash screen. So this is the page of the screen that displays when you open up your app, just for a second or two. So you'll need that in both portrait and landscape formats. And those assets can then be uploaded to the app building wizard in Publish. And once you have all the relevant information you need, you can actually this wizard in Publish sort of takes you through all the things that you need to actually build your app. And then once you've got them all, you can build the app and download a tester version. And then this is also what you'll submit to Apple once you have some content ready and want to present it to them and get approval. Yeah, so that is very basically what building an app entails. Now, once you've built your app, you can upload your content. So that will be done through this content section. So really, in the case of a library style app, you'll simply create a new issue. So let's call this one Artisan issue 8. You can nominate whether it's going to be a paid issue or whether it's private, whether you have authentication attached to it, which may be something you want to consider. You can determine all those types of things when you create a new issue. You say save. I'm not going to do that, but let's pretend that I have. So let's pretend this is issue 8. I can then come over here and upload the content that will go into that issue. So to do that, I'm going to zip up my iPad files, and I will upload that zip onto the dashboard. I'll then also go through a process of proofing my content and creating an index and thumbnails, and this will just ensure that all the files work together really well and function as they're supposed to. Yeah, and then once you've done that, you say publish, and your content will be live in your app. All right, so now just a few other things to consider with regards to kiosk apps. And this is mainly relating to the fact that a kiosk app is going to be in a public space, and that implies that you need to think about things like securing your device and also securing content on the app, because of course you don't want strangers or members of the public roaming around your iPad, you know, surfing the web or looking at other things which may be not suitable for content or for public view. So there are 2 ways, and I'm sure there are many more ways that you could also do this, but 2 ways of securing your content on the iPad is by using either guided access or the Apple configurator. So guided access is a function of the iPad itself. And I'll just show you my iPad screen again. So the way you set up guided access on your iPad is you go to General. I think it's all right. So you go to General and you go to Accessibility and scroll down to Guided Access. So over here, you can turn it on. You can also set a passcode. Okay, so I'll just set my usual passcode. Well, anyway, you can set up a passcode if you want added security. So that's basically how you enable guided access on an iPad. Now, when you're in the content which you want to display in kiosk mode, you can then, by tapping on the home button 3 times really quickly, it will then give you the option to go into guided access. So what's going to happen now if I start guided access is that people will not be able to go out of this app. So even if they tap on the home button, they will not be able to exit the app, and all that they'll be able to do is interact with the content displayed in the app in front of them. So it's important to enable touch, otherwise a person is not going to be able to interact with the content at all. But that is an option. If you just want to maybe have your kiosk as a display and not have people interact with it, you can completely disable touch. So they won't be able to do anything with the app other than look at it. All right, so that is quite a handy thing to know about in this scenario. Another thing that you can use, and that is a bit more complicated, is the Apple configurator. The Apple configurator also is a way for you to distribute content on apps. So this is likely going to entail working with your IT department, and yeah, because it's probably something that needs to be considered quite broadly in the company, like how the content is going to be distributed to different devices, and then how those devices are going to be secured in the environments they'll be placed in. So the Apple configurator can be used to limit certain functions on the device, and it can also be used to push content to devices. So that really links up with my next point. So if your app isn't a consumer app, you may not need to put it on the App Store. It might not be necessary for you to deal with Apple and to get it into the App Store and to allow members of the public to download it. So another way of getting an app onto various devices is through using a mobile device management system, or an MDM. And the Apple configurator is one such system that you can use.
So when designing a kiosk app, a function that you can take advantage of in the Oomph platform is kiosk mode. So the way you access kiosk mode is by tapping once on the screen to access the sidebar menu. Then tap on kiosk mode, and under this menu you'll see various options. Now, Oomph kiosk mode has two different functionalities. One, which is an autoplay. So what will happen in this case is the content inside your app will play automatically. So the app will simply run through each and every screen of your app and display that for an allocated amount of time. So if you select autoplay and 5-second delay and enter kiosk mode, the app will then display each page or each screen for 5 seconds before moving on to the next one. So this will just continue in a loop until you exit kiosk mode. All right, so that is the autoplay kiosk mode. Now, you could use that for your app, depending on exactly what type of content you have. Say if you're at an event, or if you have a stand somewhere and you want to simply present images or content that people are not going to interact with on an iPad, that would be a great functionality to use for that app. Now, the other kiosk mode is so it's non-autoplay. It doesn't autoplay all your screens. What it does instead is that it will revert back to the very first page or the cover of your app after an allocated amount of time. So in the case of the Jurlique app, if the app has not been interacted with for a time of 60 seconds or 1 minute, it will go back to the cover page with the rotating sort of images and the brand and the section where you can select your language. So in that case, it sort of acts as a restart or a reset button, and it will actually reset all the preferences contained in that skin consultation matrix. It will start right at the beginning of that. So it'll reset everything in the app and send you back to the first page, so that when the next user comes along, everything's sort of set out in its base format and it's fresh content to interact with. Yeah, so I'm going to uncheck autoplay here, select 1 minute. Now that you can't, by default one of those are selected, but unless you select that, this is not going to be relevant. So what you're going to do is, for your idle timeout, or your revert back to cover kiosk mode option, select how long you want to have your cover revert to, and say enter kiosk mode. So your content will then, you can sort of, interact with the app as you normally would, sort of browsing around and so forth. And if you leave the app for 1 minute, it will then go back to the start page, so back to the cover, ready for the next person to use. So that's a really handy feature available in the Oomph platform to use when you're planning and designing or setting up the kiosk app.
We'll be ending off. Thanks very much for joining us today. Apologies again for that bit of a technical hitch at the end. Please visit our website again for any future webinars. We'd love to have you join for any others. Thanks again for joining.